What is good, everybody? Thank you for joining us here on the Mission Ready Men podcast on the SHR Media Network. Today is Thursday, December 19th, and we have some new details we're going to talk about regarding the school shooter in Wisconsin. The spending bill is officially dead. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And a very disturbing poll came out that it's very disturbing. It doesn't bode well for our future. So we're going to get into that and a few other things as well. But first, do me a favor and hit that like button, subscribe, share this video, share these videos. The more you like and share and subscribe and comment, we'd love for you to comment. The more people we can reach. Trump won in November, that's true, and he received a very large mandate. But and despite the fact that the big tech tyrants, some of them have actually gone down to Mar-a-Lago to bend the knee, they're still actively suppressing our content. They're still actively suppressing our content like ours. So along with liking and subscribing and sharing and commenting, you can pray for us as well. The Bible says that the effective, fervent prayer of a righteous man avails much. So pray that we can reach as many people as possible. But I do want to thank you for joining us here on the SHR Media Network, where you can catch all of the other great shows like The Edge of Liberty with Sackhead Sean, The Reaver of Common Sense with Jersey Joe, and BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon with the bloviating Zeppelin BZ. And you can follow this show on all the socials at Mission Ready Men, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or X if you prefer. I don't. And Truth Social. And if you like the shirt I'm wearing, head over to missionreadymen.com, click shop, and check out all the great designs that we have there as well. And we do have a sale going on. You're not going to get any apparel in time for Christmas, but we do have 30% off going on from now until the new year. So anything that you buy from Seven Armors or Carry Girl. So fellas, do yourself a favor and hit up Carry Girl and get your wife or girlfriend something nice over there. Also, great patriotic and faith-based designs, just like over on Mission Ready Men and Seven Armors. All right, let's get after it. We got a lot to get to. So the school shooter in Wisconsin. We have a few new details, not a whole lot new, but a few new details. And something that I didn't mention the last time we talked. I don't know if it had actually happened yet by the time. Yeah, it did. But anyway, the police chief who was giving a report on that incident actually said that it didn't matter whether or not the shooter was gender confused in any way. It didn't matter how they identified. And I just want to say that given the recent history of all the shooters that have been gender diluted or gender confused, it is relevant. It does matter. Now, as it turns out, this person probably wasn't, just based on what we know so far. That could change. By all accounts, she identified, she was a female and she identified as such. She didn't have, she did have they, them pronouns in her profile. So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but by all accounts, she identified as a female, a very disturbed female, as it turns out, because she actually had a manifesto. And it's weird that another reason why she's probably not identifying as identified as a gender confused individual is because we have her manifesto. They allowed it to get out, and it just shows that she was a very, very disturbed individual. I'm not gonna read all of the content of it. You can read that for yourself. I have a link to that in the show notes, so you can check it out. But she did. There are some things that we want to point out, and this is from one of the first people who accurately reported on this shooter. And this reporter, I believe she's an editor for Redux. I think it's Redux. But she said that she made contact with the alleged boyfriend of the shooter, and he identified her. I'm not going to read her name. But her manifesto was titled "A War Against Humanity." 6 pages of ranting and raving by a very disturbed young woman. And like I said, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but you can see here in this thread that the manifesto is published. And she expressed admiration for some other mass shooters like Pekka Eric Avinen. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name right. Some other guy who goes by the name Screwy. And there were a few others, like I said, mass shooters who were just depraved individuals, and she was expressing admiration for these people. And she also talked about in the manifesto how she couldn't stand her parents. They had been through multiple divorces, accusations of drug and alcohol abuse. This is another reason why, more evidence of why fathers need to be more present, more active in their children's lives. And the fact that this young woman went through the divorce of her parents is that's sad, and that probably led to, not probably, I'm sure that led to a lot of what she was dealing with, as evidenced by what was in the manifesto. This was completely preventable, and it's sad that the families affected have to go through this. It's sad for her parents. Her parents are now dealing with this, and it's sad for them. I don't want to say that they deserve blame for this, but they definitely should have been more aware of what was going on in their child's life. She was 15 years old and obviously a very disturbed young girl. In the picture, the shirt she was wearing is the same shirt that was worn by one of the Columbine killers. And she expressed admiration for them as well. It's a sad state of affairs, and my thoughts and prayers go out to the victims, her victims, and her parents as well. And we'll see how everything shakes out in the investigation. But as far as As far as what we know right now, they all just need our prayers and support. One thing that I did want to talk about with regard to this is the fact that and it happens just about every time. They immediately called for gun control and assault weapons ban. And of course, come to find out that it was um, her weapon of choice was a handgun. So the assault weapons ban would not have prevented this had it been in effect. I just want to know, where was that energy when the killer of Brian Thompson was after that murder? You didn't hear a peep about gun control. I wonder why. And we are going to get into that story a little later on. But first, I want to I want to move on to another story that I mentioned, and that is the spending bill that was just killed. The spending bill is dead, and that is a good thing. And I had a whole segment planned to talk about all the different, well, not all, but a number of the different provisions that were in it. And I'm still going to talk about them, but it's going to be quicker because it's dead. And the only thing I just want to point out is that we need to be ready. We need to be on the lookout for these for some of these provisions, because just because this bill is dead doesn't mean they're not going to try and slip them into the next one that comes down the pike. And the one of the biggest ones, it affects me, it affects us as a whole, is the State Department and their Global Engagement Center. There was funding for that in this bill. And in case you're not familiar, the Global Engagement Center was basically a slush fund for organizations. They funded organizations that censored conservative media. And the fact that Republicans voted for this, and I know it didn't get to the floor for a vote, but Republicans had to approve this. It had to get out of committee and get to the point where it was ready to be voted on. And the fact that Speaker Johnson championed this thing, he is snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, because he's torpedoing his chances to remain speaker by bringing a bill like this to the floor. This provision in the bill extends funding for the program, and that's the other thing about these bills. They had all the time in the world to put individual bills together to vote on and pass, but they wait until the very last minute, even though they said they weren't going to. They said they weren't going to do this again, but they waited till the very last minute to put together a 1,500-page bill and give them 3 days to read it. Nobody's going to read 1,500 pages in 3 days. No matter how many sections they divide it up in and how many people they have reading different sections, you're not going to get through 1,500 pages in 3 days. Not with any real understanding of what is entailed in the bill. And so 1,500 pages in 3 days it's going to be stuffed with all kinds of nonsense, like this funding for this Global Engagement Center. And we as the fact that it got killed is a testament to what we can do um, when there isn't a ton of censorship being leveled at us. Elon Musk and Twitter X had a big part to play in getting this thing squashed. Because if it hadn't been for that, if Jack Dorsey was still in charge of Twitter, do you think any of this would have come to light? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This would have gone through, and just like Nancy Pelosi said years ago, we would have had to read past the bill to find out what was in it. And then once we found out what was in it, then there would have been all kinds of outrage, but it would have been too late. So this Global Engagement Center funding has been squashed. We need to keep an eye out on that because, like I said, any of these provisions can end up in the next bill that comes forward. One of the other provisions in this bill that was mind-boggling, how they thought this could pass without anyone batting an eye, is beyond me. And what they did was they put a provision in this bill that would block investigations into Congress. Can you I saw one tweet, and I think it might be in the story that we're about to show you, where they asked if Liz Cheney was involved in drafting this bill. Hilder's slip scheme into spending bill to block stymie investigations into Congress. And Mike Johnson, he's just a sad, weak individual for allowing this to happen. But part of the section states that upon a motion made promptly by a House office or provider for a House office, a court of competent jurisdiction shall quash or modify any legal process directed to the provider for a House office if compliance with the legal process would require the disclosure of House data of the House office. So basically, if there's an investigation and they subpoena records, they can legally squash it if this were to go through. And yeah, here it is. Did Liz Cheney negotiate the CR? I mean, it's how they thought they could get away with this is beyond me. I really don't get it. Don Jr. tweeted, so the House is going to vote to protect itself from glaring and obvious wrongdoing. And he's right. We didn't vote for this. We voted for the exact opposite. We voted for the exact opposite. And the fact that Mike Johnson actually allowed this to happen, if he survives as Speaker, I will be surprised. We don't have anyone right now in the running challenging him, but we'll see what happens come January. But this is ridiculous, man. This is absolutely ridiculous. And one other thing I wanted to talk about, I don't have the citation in front of me, but something that we also need to be on the lookout for when the next bill comes. They put a provision in this bill to basically try and I don't want to say corner the market, but secure blockchain. And if you're familiar with blockchain, or if you're not, blockchain is what cryptocurrency is built on. So um, Bitcoin, Dogecoin, Tether, and all the other ones that are out there are all built on blockchain technology. So what's the big deal? Well, the big deal is, and you may or may not remember this, but a couple of years ago, the possibility of a digital dollar was bouncing around Washington, which would be built on blockchain technology. And if they implemented a digital dollar, what that would mean is that if you had your money in the bank, they would have total control over it. You could try to use it to buy a firearm, and they could say no. With the a tap of a button, they could freeze all of your money for no reason. And the fact that they want that they want total control over everything. Let's be clear. They want complete and total control. And if they can control your money, they can control you. They're already trying to control you with healthcare and all the stuff that they're trying to do on that front. So if they have your healthcare under control and they have your money on lock, they got you. And we cannot allow that to happen. And so when the next bill comes out, we have to make sure that there is none of this blockchain government control cryptocurrency nonsense is in there. We can't have it. All right. I want to move on to and people tried to say that was a conspiracy theory, that they weren't gonna control your money like that. I want to move on to another conspiracy theory, but before we do that, I want to get a word from our sponsor, and that is My Freedom Beef. And what these people are doing with our food supply is scary. And you can't trust any of the agencies in charge of dealing with our food. And I know that with RFK Jr. Set to take over, that could change, but it's going to take a while. So do you know what's in your beef? Do you know what's in your meat? Because in My Freedom Beef, it's only the good stuff. 100% Angus cattle, and not just certified Angus cattle, but 100% certified Angus cattle. No antibiotics, no hormones, and absolutely no mRNA vaccines. This beef is raised in a pasture and grass-fed. There are other beef subscription boxes out there, absolutely. But only one can say that they are Patriot-owned with superior 100% Black Angus genetics. Everyone deserves to be able to afford to feed their family with meat they can trust. See why 20,000 Patriots a month are switching their shopping to My Freedom Beef. So check out our sponsors, myfreedombeef.com. Use the promo code Jackson to get the finest beef in America sent to your door at unbeatable prices. All right, before we get to this next conspiracy theory, I want to remind you to go ahead and wherever you're watching, whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, wherever you're watching, go ahead and hit that like button, share it, subscribe to the channel, and let everyone know. Let everyone hear the message that we have, because we need to get it out there. All right. Another conspiracy theory has been proven correct. And we all knew it. When it comes to these conspiracy theories, all it is you just got to give it a couple of weeks to a couple of months before it becomes fact, or before it's acknowledged as fact. We know that they're facts. And the one we're going to talk about now is Tren de Aragua. We had it was originally reported 14 people were arrested in relation to a home invasion and torture in Aurora, Colorado. But as it turns out, it was 19 people ended up getting arrested. And just check this out real quick, and then we'll talk about it some more.
Okay, Aurora, Colorado now. This is a live look now. The sun is up there in that state, and police have now detained 14 people and reported armed home invasion. That's the same apartment complex where a lot of people were complaining about the armed Venezuelan gang members roaming the halls. Reports indicate that investigators said that several suspects entered the apartment and had 2 people inside. The suspects then reportedly moved the victims to another apartment complex, or rather another unit on the property, where police said they were found threatened and bound. An adult man sustained a non-life-threatening stab wound. At the moment, police say it's unclear if the suspects are connected to the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, but we'll get a live report in Colorado 30 minutes away and bring you the latest on that developing story. Okay, Aurora, Colorado.
So yeah, it turns out that they were Tren de Aragua gang members, and after that report, 5 more individuals were detained in connection with that. And I don't know if you remember during the debate when Trump made that claim that, and this was right after we saw all the video. We saw all the video, and Trump said that they had gang members taking over apartment complexes, and they all tried to fact check him in real time and say that wasn't happening, even though, like I said, we had the video. We had the video. We knew it was happening, but they said no, it wasn't happening. Well, here we are, months later, and Tren de Aragua is arrested in connection with taking over apartment complexes. It really, I don't understand why these people are so insistent in allowing this to happen. I don't understand why they hate America so much. I take that back. I kind of do understand why. It's just so unfathomable to me. It's mind-boggling. It really is. It really is. This is the greatest country in the world. It is a blessing from God to be here, and these people are hell-bent on destroying it. I mean, most of them already have money, and when we're talking about these legislators who are in power, what good does it possibly do them to destroy what is gaining them all this money and power? Makes no sense. Makes absolutely no sense. Speaking of things that don't make sense, we've talked about this a number of times now. The killer of the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, he has been charged with terrorism, an act of terrorism, in connection to his shooting of Brian Thompson. And the fact that let's take a look at this. and then we'll talk about it, because I have some questions, and it's not that I dispute charging him with an act of terrorism at all. I think that's fantastic. Well, fantastic isn't the right word, but I think it's very appropriate. And a grand jury indicted this guy. I'm not going to say his name, um, charging him with first-degree murder in the uh, death of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson, accusing him of killing to further an act of terrorism, according to court documents. And I agree. I I agree with the assessment that it was an act of terrorism, or in furtherance of an act of terrorism, which terrorism is basically the use of violence in order to further a political agenda. And that's probably not quite the legal definition word for word, but that's what it amounts to. And for whatever reason, his reasoning still isn't clear. He was a rich kid who hadn't been denied any care from United Healthcare. So what was going through his head when he was doing this, we still don't know. But one of the questions I have surrounding this is, well, in New York, you can only be charged with first-degree murder with certain circumstances, where the victim of the murder is a judge, a police officer, a first responder, when the killing involves a murder for hire plot, or the intent to commit terrorism. So my question is, would he have been charged with the intent to commit terrorism if this hadn't been such a high profile case? I tend to doubt it, given the way New York is so lackadaisical with their law enforcement. I mean, it's a revolving door. People get arrested and let out of jail before the arresting officers even done with the paperwork. And people get shot in New York far too often, obviously. And you never hear about it. Now, of course, Brian Thompson was a rich CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company. And the shooter comes from a rich family with no connection really to the healthcare industry, other than he just has a problem with it. So yeah, there's a reason why it's so high profile, but I wonder if he hadn't been the CEO of a major company like that, and he hadn't been from a rich family. I don't wonder. We wouldn't have heard about it, and I seriously doubt that once they caught him, he would have been charged with an act of terrorism. The shooter, for whatever reason, has been elevated, venerated for some strange reason, and I've heard some female commentators talk about he's hot, whatever. We talked about them mentioning his abs the last time we talked about this. A horrifying, absolutely horrifying poll came out, and I really couldn't believe it when I saw it. And what it says is that 41% of people aged 18 to 29 find the murder of Brian Thompson acceptable. And this is a poll from Emerson College Polls. And here you have the 18 to 29. 33% say that it's completely unacceptable. Meanwhile, 41% say that it's completely or somewhat acceptable to, and then 19 who are neutral, which is also ridiculous. I have some thoughts as to why I think that is, but I wonder if you have any thoughts as to why so many young people think that it is acceptable to kill someone that you have a problem with. Unless you're in a situation where you have to defend yourself, killing is absolutely unacceptable under any circumstances. Other than, like I said, where you're in a situation where you have to defend yourself or your family. And my thoughts as to why this is so pervasive, why so many young people think that this is acceptable, is what I always bring it back to. And that is, as a country, I always bring it back to God. And as a country, we have largely rejected God. I mean, and it started in the 60s when we got rid of prayer in schools and got rid of the Bible in schools. And it's only gone downhill, completely downhill since then. I mean, look at where we are. 41% of young people think it's okay to kill somebody that you have a problem with. He didn't know this guy from Adam. He had never met this guy. And yet, these people, these kids think that it's okay, justified. And so without God as your foundation, the enemy, the devil, he can work with impunity. And that's what this shows. This poll bears that out. And so that's the number one reason why we're seeing this happen. But there are other factors as well, which can be traced back to that to a certain extent. Well, not to a certain extent. It can be traced back to that. Lack of fathers in homes, and we saw that with the shooter in Wisconsin, and her family's her broken family, her parents' divorce. I guarantee you that a majority of the young people who found this acceptable grew up without their father for a good part of their childhood. I can guarantee that is the case. And I've said before, mothers can do a wonderful job. We see examples of it all the time, but nothing can replace the guidance. Nothing can replace the steady hand that a father's love and guidance can provide. Another factor, which probably again goes hand in hand with um, lack of fathers being in the home, sending your kids to government schools. Get your kids out of government schools. That was almost the title of this episode. Get your kids out of government schools. They are indoctrination centers. Government schools are riddled with leftist teachers, leftist professors who teach your children to hate America, teach your children that capitalism is bad, teach your children that if you work hard and become a millionaire or a billionaire, you are inherently evil. And therefore, as this poll shows, it's okay if you go ahead and kill them. They teach your children that if you're white, you are automatically an oppressor and racist. And if you're black, you are automatically oppressed, whether you know it or not. Nobody ever came at me like that, but I have heard several stories of black people who have been told by their white friends and colleagues that they just don't know how oppressed they really are, which is just one of the dumbest things you can possibly say to somebody. But you need to get your kids out of these government schools, and I'm going to tell you why. There are 168 hours in a week. Your kids are in those schools, those government indoctrination centers, for 40 hours. That leaves 128 hours. Your kids are asleep at least 8 hours out of that week, 8 hours a day out of that week. So 128 minus 56 leaves 72 hours that your kids are not either asleep or in the care of people who hate them, hate you, and hate this country. So then, if you work, if both parents work, kids get home from school or spend time in daycare. So that's 15 to 20 more hours that they're not in your care. So that leaves 52 to 57 hours, a little more than 2 days that they're in your care, which is the weekend. So during the weekends, your kids are playing video games. You're working because you have stuff to do for your job. So in reality, your kids spend much more time in the care and being taught by these people who hate you and hate them and hate this country than they are by you. That's sad. And that is a big part of the reason why these kids these days think that it's acceptable to kill somebody, because they're not being taught by their parents. They're not spending enough time with their parents to counteract what they're being taught in these government indoctrination centers. And I know that's going to ruffle a lot of feathers. Not sorry. It is what it is. And we're living through the evidence right now. We just saw a bunch of college brats on campus talking about intifadas and supporting Gaza and wearing the keffiyehs and all that nonsense, when Israel is our number one ally in the region and the only democratic state. And if these people were saying that Israel should stop bombing Gaza and all this other stuff, if Israel laid down their weapons, Israel would cease to exist. If the Palestinians and the Muslims who hate Israel were to stop their violence, there would be peace in the Middle East. It's that simple. But I'm getting a little far afield with that. But I mean, it comes back to the fact that these kids have been indoctrinated. They've been indoctrinated by these people who hate us. And aside from praying our way out of this mess, faith without works is dead. One of the works is getting your kids out of these schools, out of these indoctrination centers, and teaching them yourself. That is going to go a long, long way. Between prayer and that, we would see a turnaround like that. All right. Rant over for now, anyway. We're almost out of time, but I wanted to get you out of here on some lighter stuff. And one of the lighter notes that I wanted to touch on was, well, at least a somewhat lighter note. AOC, she threw her hat in the ring to be the ranking member on the House Oversight Committee. That is a big deal. Being the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee means that if the Democrats were to ever retake the House, she would be the chairwoman of that committee. That's a powerful position to be in. And apparently Nancy Pelosi was having none of it. She was having none of it. And I'm not going to get into all the inner workings of the Democrat Party when it comes to that. But you've probably heard that AOC has been floating the possibility of running for president in 2028. And yes, we know she is a vapid, empty vessel. She's, a lot of people say she is. She's an idiot. She's an idiot. But and I'm not going to say she's talented either, but she has some of the tools that it takes to get into the leadership. She does have those tools. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but she's not unattractive. She's a terrible person for sure, but she's photogenic and she can read a script. She can memorize talking points and she can communicate those talking points somewhat effectively, more effectively than the cackler Kamala Harris could, which is a sad commentary. Because I don't think she's much smarter than Kamala, but she's a better communicator, and by that I mean she's better able to, like I said, memorize talking points and present her case. And there are a lot of people out there who believe her nonsense. So even though she lost this round, Nancy Pelosi is not going to be around forever to keep her down. And there's reasons why Nancy Pelosi she doesn't like the squad in general. And AOC joined a protest in her office that Nancy Pelosi has never, I can't remember exactly what group was protesting. I want to say Black Lives Matter. But regardless, she joined the protest in her office, and Nancy Pelosi hasn't forgotten that. And so, as long as she's around, she is going to make her life, um, make her political life not so pleasant. And so, I say all that to say this: do not underestimate AOC, because, like I said, Nancy Pelosi is not going to be around forever, and she could surprise a lot of people. Maybe not in 28, but maybe 32, if we're not careful. So, unfortunately, we're stuck with AOC for a while. I don't see her losing her seat, and I don't see her not ending up in some form of leadership in the Democrat Party, which doesn't say a whole lot for the Democrat Party, or actually it does say a lot. But yeah, so keep an eye out on that. And a couple, I promise these are lighter notes. A couple of really sad. Oh, where did it go? There we go. So these people exist. And I really thought when I saw this that it was parody. I really thought that it was that they were making fun of leftists, but it turns out that this person believes everything that you're about to hear. And when I when I heard this, I was just listen.
Trump has literally been our president for over a month now, and he hasn't done anything. Like, I'm still seeing Biden do it all. Like, he's been our president for over a month now. What has he done? So freaking confusing. And why isn't he at the White House yet? Biden is still in the White House living. Trump has literally been our president.
Can you believe that? More evidence why you need to get your kids out of government schools. Because she is, and like I said, I thought this was parody, but she is a Kamala voter, and she clearly believes that once Trump won in November, that he was going to immediately take over. She has no idea that there's a transition period, and he's not inaugurated and doesn't move into the White House until January 20th. Wow. What do you say to that? Other than get your kids out of government schools, because that's the result. Just wow. One final wow to get you out of here. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson, you know, the one who couldn't define what a woman is. She apparently has had a dream to be on Broadway. And somebody decided to make that dream come true. And it is the stuff of nightmares. It is she's not a talented lawyer or jurist. And she is obviously, once you see this, she is not a talented performer either. This was one of the saddest displays I think I've ever seen. And look how, I didn't realize how short she was, but she looks like a little person. But since I had to listen to this, you do too.
Female empowerment. Sick. I like it too. I think what I like about it is that I am having a very strongly negative reaction to it. Like I hate it. Which makes me think it must be brilliant. Got this feeling in my body. Can't stop the feeling. Got this feeling in my body. Can't stop the feeling. I did it. I made it to Broadway. Come on.
Wow. Just wow. That was a production of a woke version of Romeo and Juliet. I have no words. I have absolutely no words. She is a Supreme Court justice who clearly has no dignity. If she wanted to be a Broadway star, then that's what she should have done. But Supreme Court justices should have a better sense of decorum than that. Now, if she was a talented actress, singer, and she wanted to do that, I would still have a problem with it, but at least she wouldn't be embarrassing herself and embarrassing the court. Because that was embarrassing. Anyway, that is all I got for you folks this time. I will try to do better the next time. Please don't forget to like and subscribe and share these videos, share these episodes so that we can continue to spread the gospel of Jesus Christ and the message of hope and liberty. We need to spread that message to as many people as we possibly can because we want to preserve it for future generations. And also, again, if you like the shirt I'm wearing, head over to missionreadymen.com/shop and check out all of our great designs with messages of faith and patriotism. missionreadymen.com/shop 7 armors. And as always, when seconds count, the police are only minutes away, but the Lord is right there with you. So keep your prayers going up and your head on a swivel. God bless.